Before we formally begin with the emotional intelligence lecture, let's understand this example. She's Usha, she's a manager. Her awareness of her own and others' emotions is almost nil. So she is also moody and unable to generate much enthusiasm or interest in her employees. She often doesn't understand why employees get upset with her, and she often overreacts with the problems and chooses the most ineffective emotional responses. So, in one word, we can say that Usha has a low emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence. This is the sixth topic in my OB lecture series. In this lecture, I am going to cover aspects of emotional intelligence, why it is important, what are the managerial implications, and how one person can develop it. So let's begin the topic. The contents of the presentation include the introduction of the concept of EI, the meaning and definition, the various aspects of emotional intelligence, various domains of emotional intelligence, what are the factors that contribute to EI, the core competencies of emotional intelligence, the cascading model of emotional intelligence, followed by the case for emotional intelligence, where we are going to talk about the intuitive appeal, emotional intelligence and the performance at job, EI and the biological roots. The case against EI also we are going to discuss, where we are going to cover lack of awareness on the lack of agreement, sorry, on the definitions of EI. Then the challenges in measuring EI and overlap with the EI construct with the personality. Then very interestingly, we are going to talk about the steps on based on the research observations for developing EI by Daniel Goleman, followed by references. So let's begin with emotional intelligence background. Let's begin with historical context. The concept of emotional intelligence was initially introduced by Mayer and Salovey in 1995, but it gained traction largely due to Daniel Goleman's work, especially his book Emotional Intelligence and Why It Can Matter More Than IQ in 1995, and also subsequent writings. Number 2, neglect of emotional intelligence. Before this book got published, organization often used to prioritize cognitive and verbal intelligence and also used to overlook the emotional aspects of the behavior. So, integration of EI with other skills. So, emotional intelligence encompasses a range of soft skills, including interpersonal and intrapersonal abilities. Interpersonal means with people, and intrapersonal means within the person, which are vital for effective communication. When I am saying effective communication, I don't mean the ability to speak some language, but also understand that what the other person has not spoken, and also relationship management. Fourth, predictive power of EI, that is emotional intelligence. So it also talks about understanding emotional intelligence can enhance the prediction of individual performance in the workplace, indicating its personal role in the recruitment, employee development. Then comes your adaptive nature of thoughts and emotions. So emotional intelligence highlights the intertwined nature of emotions and rational thoughts, suggesting that both are essential for success. Holistic approach of recruitment. Recently, what has been observed is in order to select the right candidate, organizations should adapt a integrated approach that considers emotional intelligence alongside the traditional intelligence and technical skills. So EI, which is usually measured by psychometric tests, or we also call them personality tests, for example big 5 indicators. So it is measured by personality assessment test, psychometric test, and the traditional skills are measured by conducting tests such as data analysis, mathematical things, reasoning. In the words of Daniel Goleman, emotional intelligence is defined as the capacity to reorganizing our own feelings and those of others for motivating ourselves, for managing emotions well in ourselves and also in our relationship. So the underlying belief in Goleman hypothesis is rational thinking alone cannot ensure success. Cannot ensure success. In other words, high intelligence quotient, high IQ alone cannot lead to success. The second one is it is due to the reason that organizations endeavor to develop leadership skills, leadership skills and competencies among employees to enhance their EI or EQ. The essential premises of emotional quotient is that one requires effective awareness, control and management of its own emotions and those of other people to be successful. On the basis of that, we have two aspects of emotional intelligence. Number one, understanding self, goals, intentions, responses and also behavior. Number two, understanding others and also their feelings. So first I am talking about myself and then I am talking about others. This is I and this is others. So these are the aspects of emotional intelligence. Now let's talk about the domains of the emotional intelligence. So Goleman identified the 5 domains of EQ known as number 1, knowing one's emotions. Number 2, managing one's emotions. Number 3, motivating oneself. Number 4, reorganizing and understanding other people's emotions. And lastly, managing relationships, that is managing the emotions of others. So these are the 5 dimensions or 5 domains of emotional intelligence as proposed by Daniel Goleman. Talk about the factors contributing to emotional intelligence. As you can see this picture, there are 5 factors. One is social awareness, then self-awareness, social skill, skill management and also relationship management. So these are the 5 factors that are contributing to emotional intelligence. To evaluate the change in the workplace through development of EQ, organizations need to evaluate the individual and the organizational effect. So as a rule, the higher a person's EQ, the less insecurity there is likely to be present and more the degree of openness that will be tolerated. So let's say high emotional quotient equals to low insecurity, which is equal to more openness. So this is how in organizational settings high emotional quotient plays a major role. Core competencies of EI. EI is typically broken down into 4 core competencies. So we'll begin with self-awareness. It is at the core of everything. It describes your ability not only to understand your own strengths and weaknesses but also the emotions and what would be the impact of your emotions on the team's performance. Second, we'll talk about the self-management. It is the ability to manage your own emotions, particularly in stressful situations where which are not normal, and also you try to stay positive with irrespective of the thing that the things are not positive, but you are positive. You have the positive outlook about the things. Next, let's talk about the social awareness, which is also one of the core competencies of EI. So while it's important to understand and manage your own emotions, it is also important to read the room, means what is happening around you. Lastly, the relationship management. It refers to your ability to influence and coach and mentor others and also resolve the conflict which are happening. The cascading model of emotional intelligence. People who know their own emotions are good at reading emotional cues. For instance, knowing why they are angry and how to express themselves without violating the norms are more likely to be effective ultimately. So the model suggests that conscientiousness aids in recognizing emotions, cognitive abilities help in understanding these emotions, and emotional stability allow for effective regulation of the emotions. Effective regulation of the emotion. So this model appears to depict a process involving different personality traits and their influence of emotional intelligence components, particularly focusing on perceiving, understanding and regulating. PUR, perceiving, understanding and regulating are these are the three central components of EI which are influenced by different type of personality traits. Conscientiousness leads to perceiving the emotions in self and others. It is a personality trait characterized by being organized, responsible, and goal oriented. People high in conscientiousness are generally more aware of their surroundings and actions, which extends to their ability to perceive emotions both in themselves and other. Means they are aware about their own emotions and also the emotions of the surroundings and also the others. So perceiving emotion, for example, this is the fundamental in the emotional intelligence involving accurately recognizing emotions in facial expressions, tone of voice and body language. Means whatever is not been just expressly told to them, they are able to understand that as well, they are able to perceive that as well. Second is cognitive, understand the meaning of emotions. The first was perceiving. The second step is, second thing is understanding the emotions, meaning of emotions. Like I understood the verbal cues, but I perceived the verbal cues or the tone of voice, but now this is the time to understand. So cognitive ability, it refers to the mental processes involved in acquiring knowledge and understanding, including perception, reasoning, and also the judgment. So strong cognitive skills support one's ability to understand emotions by interpreting and making sense of them. It involves comprehending the emotional patterns and recognizing how different emotions are interconnected. Like knowing that frustration may be linked to the sadness or disappointment allows individuals to respond better in the social situation. You know how to deal with people. The third one is regulating the emotions, emotional stability. So it is a key aspect of personality reflecting one's capacity to remain calm, balanced and less affected by stress or emotional turbulence. So people high in emotional stability can maintain a composure under the pressure situations as well. Regulating emotions, this is the ability to manage and control one's emotional responses, ensuring appropriate reactions to the situation. And also like they are the like emotionally stable people are better equipped to regulate the negative emotions like anger, anxiety, and they maintain positive emotional states. Means for example, even if they are angry, they are not going to talk to you badly, they are not going to insult you, they are going to control the temper and they are going to behave like an adult in that particular situation. So what is the summary of this model? The summary of the model states that conscientiousness aids in recognizing emotions, cognitive abilities aids in understanding the emotions, and emotional stability helps in regulating the emotions. So, perceiving, understanding and regulating emotions are the central components of emotional intelligence and they are influenced by the underlying personality traits. So, this was the cascading model of emotional intelligence. It's going to be very interesting. OB as a subject has EI as a controversial topic with supporters as well as the detractors. So the arguments in favor of EI includes its intuitive appeal. Almost everyone agrees that it is good to possess the social intelligence at workplace. It also includes being able to understand the non-verbal cues, means whatsoever is not being explicitly told, the person is able to understand that and the properly adjust the behavior according to that and make good decisions and become a good leader. Further, EI predicts the performance. Evidence suggests that a high level of EI means the high EI is, the performance would be higher. Okay. So, second one is EI is biologically based. Evidence also suggests that genetically EI is influenced and further supporting the idea that it measures a real underlying biological factor. Intuitive appeal. Most people agree that having social intelligence is beneficial, and it makes sense that individuals who can recognize emotions in others and manage their own emotions, they have an edge in the business world. Then leaders with high level of EI in organizations are known for fostering strong relationships both with clients as well as employees. The emotional intelligence can help the company maintain long-term contracts and expand its business. Second is EI also predicts the performance in business. So let's understand this with the help of example. There is a salesperson with high EI and he can read a customer's mood and adjust his sales approach accordingly and handle the rejection if the person has said no without becoming discouraged. Means he will not be sad if the person said no. The ability to manage this relationship effectively leads to customer satisfaction, that the person is going to think that I rejected, he has been motivating me for buying this product, but still when I reject it he is not angry. So ultimately this customer satisfaction leads to better sales performance in long run. The studies also show that employees with higher EI often outperform their peers in the roles requiring interpersonal interaction. So in one word we can say that employees with higher EI tend to excel because they can better understand and manage their own emotions as well as perceive and respond to the other client's emotions. EI is biologically based. So a study was conducted and on the basis of result it was found that people with the damage to the brain area for emotional processing had normal intelligence score but lower emotional intelligence scores and poorer decision making. This indicates that EI is linked to specific brain functions separate from the general intelligence, that is the traditional knowledge, or that is also called IQ. This indicates that EI is neurologically distinct from traditional intelligence, and additionally evidence suggests that EI is influenced by genetics, reinforcing the idea that it reflects a real biological factor. Let's understand what is the case against emotional intelligence. So there is lack of agreement on the definitions given of EI and the challenges in measuring EI and also the overlap with the personality as a construct. So lack of agreement on definitions. Emotional intelligence is confusing for many researchers because they define it differently. Some look EI as a skill. You can take a test focusing on how well people recognize and control emotions, often with clear right or wrong answers. Others, on the other hand, see it as a mix of traits and that can be measured through self-reports, highlighting that these traits are not the same as regular intelligence. Because of these different views, the tests used in each approach don't really match up with each other. Challenges in measuring EI. So there is a lot of questions about measuring EI because they argue that it's a form of intelligence. So there must be right or wrong answers on tests. Some tests do have right and wrong answers, although the validity of some questions is still doubtful. So one measures and asks you to associate feelings with, for example, colors. Like someone said that if purple always makes us feel cool and not warm. Others measures are self-reported, such as I am good and I am good at reading other people. So have it has no right and wrong answers, like you cannot say they are like right and wrong. However, these self-reported measures could reflect a variety of constructs like general and self-esteem or self-efficacy. Overlap with personality. There are some critics that who argue that emotional intelligence is not spatial because it is so similar to intelligence and also the personality. EI is often correlated with personality traits, especially the emotional stability, like we have in big five factors. Then researchers also acknowledge that EI is influenced by factors like cognitive intelligence and conscientiousness, and which explain the correlations. They think that when you consider these traits, EI does not really add anything new. So despite this, EI is very popular in consulting and media. For example, there is one consulting firm which claimed that EI accounts for more than 85% of the staff performance in top leaders, but still it is hard to find strong research to support that claim. Conclusion: the controversy of EI. So popularity versus the scientific support. If we talk about these two dimensions, we would say that EI remains popular in the consulting and media despite the scientific criticism. Some claims that for example 80% of the star performers in the top leaders lack strong validation in research. Unresolved questions. This field is still exploring the true impact and validity of EI. For example, we still talked about like how to measure emotional stability. So not all people are born with high level of intelligence in emotions. So there are some research based techniques which can help you develop better emotional intelligence in life. Number one, make an assessment of the job related emotional skills. Means what are the emotional skills which are needed by your particular job profile. Number two, make an assessment of the available emotional intelligence of the individuals at the workplace. And some organization make use of 360-degree feedback for this purpose. 360-degree feedback is the performance appraisal. Number three, make an assessment of the context of readiness of people in the organization to improve their level of emotional intelligence. Next, make an assessment of the level of motivation of the people to learn through experience in order to improve emotional intelligence. Then make the process of change in emotional intelligence self-directed, which allow people to develop their own learning plans, matching their own interests, resources and goals. Help people to focus on their manageable goals, planning the thought in their mind, and also that emotional quotient development is a gradual process, and in pursuing the same they may often be confronted with their old ways of doing the work. Seventh, help people understand how they can learn through lapses and also how they can prevent relapses. Make performance feedback available to people so that they can understand what they're lacking and how they can overcome that. Avoid the propensity to believe that emotional intelligence can be developed overnight, because it's a time taking process and you need to practice every day, because when you talk about emotional intelligence you are talking about self awareness as well as the social awareness, and which usually take time because all people are unique unlike machines. So Make models of desired behavior available. Introduce rewards to self-improvement to encourage and reinforce the climate of the participation for development of emotional intelligence. Then develop the objective measurement criteria to evaluate the employee performance. This is the total list of references that I have used in order to make this lecture on emotional intelligence. More specifically, all the references are very important, but if you are thinking of developing your own emotional competencies at workplace, you should go for this article by Landry L in 2013. You can just check this link and it is going to be very helpful for you. Though in one of the slides I have talked about the 4 emotional competencies, so it has been taken from this blog only. You can also try that. Thank you so much for watching this lecture. I hope this video is going to add a lot of emotional competence in you, and I wish you all the very best for your future and success. Thank you so much for watching once again.